Wargaming have finally released their brand new vehicles that they're going to be bringing into the game, which include a new tech tree line and of course the brand new TS54, which we haven't seen in World of Tanks console, or at least even had an allude to, except from the start of the brand new season, which is of course Battlefronts. We're seeing in the background here the Battlefronts kind of reveal trailer that Wargaming had done, and if you jumped onto the game you'll have been able to see this trailer, and of course I wanted to showcase it to you guys before we start this video so you know what we're talking about when it comes to the vehicles that we're kind of going through, and so you know all about them. So the double tap TS54, it is of course an American tank that has a double pump kind of barrel. You can see it right here. And essentially it has a pretty strong turret, but it has this kind of double barrels. It deals, I believe, on the region of 360 damage per shell, which is quite nice, maybe slightly less, but it's not the biggest hitter. But what is good about the tank is that, you know, you've got that constant damage that you can output, and on console, because of the fact that the double barrel mechanics work, as with the 703-2 that we currently have, that you can fire both shells. You don't have to kind of wait then a long period of time to be able to then switch back to the other mode. It's kind of almost instantaneous between which rounds you can fire, whether you want to fire both or one, and you can swap between the cannons that you want to fire as well, which is always nice. So if you're coming around a bend or something like that and it might not quite be able to hit them with one of the barrels, you can swap to the other and fire that one. But obviously the TS54, we'll take a look at it in depth in a second, but then we have the release of the double-barreled vehicles. You can see them right here. These are the Soviet double-barreled heavy tanks, and these are the other vehicles that are released. These are not premium tanks, these are the actual vehicles coming to the game. Now in the kind of front screen here you have the ST2. This is the tier 10. This is the one that you're going to be able to play at the top level in the game, and it's quite an interesting one. Obviously the ST2 is a version of the ST1 but with two barrels, which makes it quite good. And then of course on the left you've got the tier 9 and then the tier 8 on the right hand side, and essentially the tier 8 is actually a worse version of the tier 8 that we currently have, the 703-2, or at least that's how it plays on PC. So I can only assume that it will be somewhat similar when it comes to this game. But obviously, we then have a special event, which is the Team Destruction, which is Holiday 8. So you'll be able to right now, during, from December 8th, you should be able to play the special event, which is this Team Destruction, the Holiday 8s, and that means tier 8 playing 7 versus 7. It will be available in the game as like a event. And so rather than having a 15 versus 15, which we normally have, 7v7, pretty self-explanatory, and could be kind of cool to see these events coming into the game, and it's nice to have them for sure. And then of course we have another special event which comes in on the 13th of January, which is the following weekend, that features tier 10 vehicles in a Team Destruction format. So nice to have that as well. But given that that is the actual tanks, and we've kind of gone over the two different types of tanks that we've got, this premium version that's coming out, the double tap TS54, that was actually part of the loading screen to the game. And yeah, whether we'll have to buy it, not quite sure at this point, but we can certainly have a look at what these tanks are all about, and yeah, how you can play them and how they typically play on PC. Now then, this is the TS54. This is what it actually looks like, at least in a less defined version. Obviously when it comes into World of Tanks console it will look slightly differently. We're using the website tanks.gg. really recommend going to it because it can show you all kinds of things, and the thing that we want to see in World of Tanks console, which is the live armor viewer, where you can see the actual armor effectiveness of the tank as you kind of turn and move and stuff like that, which is always really useful when it comes to trying to figure out how you can bounce a few more rounds and stuff like that. So I always recommend going to here if you don't know about a specific tank, or maybe even if you're like, I just cannot seem to deal with one specific vehicle. You can go in here, you can come to the tanks list, and of course we can actually go here. Essentially you can come up to this location, you can then get the full list of tanks available and then you can come here and it will come up with all of the tanks available on PC. Obviously, these are for PC. There is no console version. This comes through all of the different test versions of PC. So I just wanted to put that in there for anyone who might be like, well, yeah, technically these are all on PC. Yes, they are, but these tanks and the armor models are going to be somewhat similar with the same kind of weak points. And of course, when they come into the game, you can kind of see that for yourself in the actual game. But it's the best way we can actually have a look at these tanks without without the tanks actually being released for sure. So, straight off the bat, it's 280 damage, so not the 360 that I thought it was, but it's 560 total damage, which is probably where I was getting a mixture of the two. But 280 damage per shell, obviously that is on one of the barrels, so as you can see, has two barrels. There's a surprise. One of them will do 280, the other 280. So if you fire them both at the same time, like you can do with the double barreled tanks, you can deal 560 damage. And of course, that's really nice when you're playing in a heavy tank. But remember, this tank is a heavy in quotation marks, and probably mainly down to the fact that the hull armor is not particularly very good. You get penned by everything and you try and side scrape, but because it has this weird kind of, we can probably see it easier on here, it kind of has like a curved side that when you do try and side scrape or try and move, everyone can pen you, so not particularly great when it comes to that. And the side armor is absolute garbage behind the track, so you get penned through the tracks very, very easily in this thing. But the whole point about it is that it has the double pump mechanic and has a decent amount of damage that you can kick out overall. So obviously you can see the turret is very, very strong on this thing, really nice to have. However, it does have a few weak points. Those primarily come when you start having premium rounds, and you really need to go for kind of this cupola here if you're looking at it right here. And there is some weak points, but you really do need super high penetration, and you can go through this location up here, which is this kind of box. It is a way of being able to pen, but it's yeah, whether that is going to be the case on console, unknown at this moment in time. But you can pen through kind of these weird like flat plates, I guess. In the visual model, you can see it's like a vision bar. These are actual places where you can pen. So this is where you want to be aiming, these kind of flat plates left and right. And trust me, you do get hit here quite often, and that's on PC with terrible accuracy compared to console. So yeah, whether the armor will stack up as well, don't really know. But for all intents and purposes, the best cupola to actually, or the best place to aim for is this one, because you have the cupola on top, where if you miss here, it can still maybe go up into the cupola. So yeah, there's just another way of kind of, if you're trying to min-max playing up against these things when they do come into the game, then that's a way of doing it. You can have a better chance at penning this thing. It's just a little tip. But of course, it's a very minimal one, and you know, if you don't do it, it doesn't matter too much. Obviously, if you can't see that side, then you want to aim for this side. But as soon as the turret gets turned to the side, very easy to pen. You can also pen through the side of the kind of gun mantlet, or just behind the gun mantlet where the gun actually pokes out. You can see right here, very easy place to pen it. So yeah, not really too much in that regard, but the whole point about this tank is having that double pump and being able to use it. With the damage per minute being 2,300 as a tier 8, not bad. Obviously that might change on console, don't know yet, but as soon as that comes out, we'll cover it in the news. And of course, we'll actually play the tank as soon as it comes out as well. It gets 8 degrees gun depression, which is fantastic. Really, really nice to use. And obviously with the turret that it gets is quite nice as well. And you can see here, this is kind of what you're looking at when it comes to going over a ridgeline. And imagine that the ridgeline is hiding your lower plate. So it can be very, very good to be able to bounce quite a few rounds, especially in tier 8s and stuff like that. So yeah, nice in that regard. Stats wise, you got 1500 health, probably won't change on console. Maybe it will, I doubt it though. But yeah, pretty okay average amount of health. 40 kilometers an hour top speed means that it's actually mobile. You can move around quite a decent amount. So very nice in that kind of situation. 0.36 dispersion, not particularly the greatest, but of course on console going to be significantly lower. And yeah, I don't think you're going to have an issue with accuracy on console. 380 meters of view range, pretty good for a heavy tank. And of course that might, well, you could probably get that up to about 480 meters with all of the boosts that we can have on console, which isn't good as well. So you're not really going to have too much troubles with spotting people if they fire at you. So That's kind of the awesome bit about this tank. In general, the tank is very solid. It's a competitive tank on PC. Is it super competitive to the point where it's like really kind of OP? No, but it is very solid. People tend to quite like this thing, and unfortunately, because it is part of the Watt Plus subscription on PC, unfortunately that is it is annoying, and it does limit people to being able to use it. You can't actually buy it on PC, but on console, I would doubt that they're going to bring in the Watt Plus subscription, as it caused a huge annoyance with a lot of the players in the game. So yeah, I doubt that they'll do that. But if they do, yeah, just know that I will definitely be fighting the corner of why the hell have you done that? So fingers crossed they don't do that. That would be a little bit of a low blow, considering some of the tanks that they've been releasing recently and some of the microtransactions that they've been doing. But it's Wargaming, so I wouldn't be surprised in any way if they did bring it in as part of a subscription on top of the premium time, by the way. So yeah, £8 a month I think it is, or there's something similar on PC. So very expensive for what it is, which literally just gives you access to this and to be able to ban a map. Now then, when it comes to the double barrel tanks that we actually have, well, we have the ST2, which is of course slotted in just behind here, behind the IS-4 and the Object 430U here. And the ST2 does come off of the KV3, and of course on the KV3 you can go up to the IS-4 line, and of course now the ST2. It would make sense on console that that's going to be the same place, as the ST1 is actually leading up to the IS-4 as well, so it would slot nicely that they come off the same kind of tech tree. So you'll end up with the tier 8 coming in from the KV3 most likely, and then it will move up to the IS-3-2 and then the ST2. Now the IS-2-2 has 300 alpha damage because, you know, typical Wargaming to release a premium that has 390 alpha, and the standard version has less alpha and is in general just a worse version of the tank. In terms of a quick rundown of this vehicle, upper plate is absolutely garbage, will get penned by everyone. The cupola gets penned by everyone. The turret armor is pretty weak in that if people load premium rounds, they can go through your actual frontal turret armor, which is fantastic. Lower plate is garbage as well, but not actually as bad as you might think, considering that the upper plate and lower plate are basically the exact same. So yeah, side armor, garbage. Side of the turret, garbage. As soon as you start angling the turret, or if you know, someone gets this sort of area, goes straight through you as well with about 200 millimeters, which tier 8 is basically every tank. So yeah. Overall, tank is pretty weak. It is not a great tank. Can it be used well? Yes. Will it be a fun tank to play, considering that there's 703-2s, which are just better than you in almost every way? Yeah, I'm not so sure. 7 degrees gun depression though, so yeah, I'll guess you get that, and maybe you can make the turret work, but even then you get the possibility of being penned through you know, these areas here where it kind of tapers down towards the side of the gun. So yeah, not quite sure that this is going to be particularly too fun of a vehicle, but it's there for those of you that wanted to know a little bit early information on these vehicles. And of course then we can move on to the next one, which is the IS-3-2. So it costs 165,000 XP to go from the tier 8 to the tier 9. So I would expect, given consoles packages, somewhere in the region of about 200,000 XP if you incorporate all of the packages and stuff like that as well. So yeah, quite a grind to be able to get these, but I guess you do start at tier 7, working your way up to tier 10, as opposed to, you know, starting at tier 3 and having to go all of that way, which is nice. And so IS-3, similar sort of story to the previous, except now you start to actually get a much better turret. This is of course standard rounds fired from the itself. You can see here, as soon as you go to premium rounds with 292 pen, you can start to see that underneath the gun mantlet it can become a weak point. You can see the side of the tank can become a weak point, and you can also get penned right like kind of on top of the gun mantlet. You see here, there's like a very thin slit that you can actually pen, and of course the cupola, smaller but yeah, still pennable, and then the upper plate is much better because it has that pike nose that you can commonly see on a lot of the kind of Soviet vehicles, the left and right here, and then of course the lower plate here. And the lower plate's pretty strong, considering it is a pike nose. So yeah, pretty much just a better tank in general. And of course it gets the 390 Alpha that you see on the tier 8 premium. 38 kilometers an hour top speed is okay. 1800 health is mediocre, nothing outrageous there, but you know, it's kind of middle of the bunch, to be honest. And in general, 0.38 accuracy is okay. 8 degrees of gun depression is nice. But for all intents and purposes, you do have to play it very aggressively, because you need to be firing every single time that you reload. Otherwise, you're going to be significantly outgunned and outclassed by a lot of medium tanks that just have way better DPM. But it's going to be fun to use the double pumper, and yeah, it's even better that you don't have to pay for it with this one. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing how that one actually plays in the game. And then of course the big daddy, the tier 10, which is the ST2, and this one is just a much better performing vehicle. You get 2,500 DPM basically, and this may vary, as I say. 440 Alpha is really nice on this tank, and because you have two of them, you can deal 880 damage, which is amazing, and it feels so powerful to do it. 40 kilometers an hour top speed is also very, very good. So no issues when it comes to that. 2,500 health, fine. 0.38 accuracy, 8 degrees of gun depression, really, really nice. And this tank, it might not be the most competitive on PC, but it certainly is pretty good. And so yeah, for the most part, really, really nice tank to have. Lower plate is the weak point of this one, but it kind of gets that IS-4 sort of armor, but not quite as good. But still, 250 millimeters on the upper plate, and some pretty good lower plate armor, 210. Does have the cupola, unfortunately, which as soon as people start loading premium rounds, this is what you're faced with. Just pen through the cupola all of the time, and the upper plate is not particularly insane either. So yeah, pen through the upper plate too, and the lower plate. So yeah, it can be a little bit annoying to play, but for the most part, you can occasionally bounce quite a few rounds, and that's always nice. Obviously, let me know what you actually think about all of these tanks. I just wanted to make sure we had a full video on all of them. Made sure that we actually showcase these vehicles, because we did showcase them a while back, but I wanted to make sure you guys now know that these tanks are coming into the game if you didn't already. And yeah, look forward to them. Now you know how to take them out. Now you know where the weak points are. And of course, now you probably have a good idea as to what the tanks are like, whether they're worth it, or whether you should consider actually grinding them out in the game. If you did like this video, make sure to like the video, and of course subscribe if you aren't already. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.